This conference will now be recorded.
Oh, okay. All right. Is there any other items for discussion that the commission would like to bring up? Or if not, I can go through the list and see if there's anything that you guys would want to get further discussion, make recommendations on.
Before we make any more recommendations, how are we doing on time? I'm not sure how late we're supposed to work, planning to go, or if we're restricted.
We're not restricted. Unless-
I'm good.
Okay. As we maintain quorum, I know we've lost one or two, so I think we're pretty well ahead on that, so. I'll bring up one for the commission for discussion. It is item, where was it? Item C and D from section, well, under 4C and D. And I'll do the recap that was discussed. It was essentially the discussion regarding Director Peters' appointment as appointing a designee to act on her behalf under ARS Title 49. Do I have a motion to discuss this further with the commission? A motion?
This is Brent from NADOT. I move to approve the motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second, Peters.
Cassie, was that you?
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so carried to discuss the designation of, or a designee, or Director Peters appointing a designee to act on her behalf under ARS Title 49. And then the discussion regarding the separation of duties and responsibility for the coordinator, as well as the position for the director's designee. Yeah, it's just discussion right now, or if there's any recommendations to be made on their behalf. Is there no discussion to be had on those items?
If there's no discussion, is there a motion to do something? And if so, what?
Is there any motion to take action on moving forward with the information to Director Peters and making the recommendations for items C and D?
Finish not motion.
No motion, no motion.
Yep.
Are there any other items up for discussion that were discussed during the executive session by any commission members?
Let me, the issue, so the one we just had a motion that we were discussing, that's died then, is that gone away at this point? Okay. I guess the motion I have is to discuss item number 6. It's regarding cooking and non-compliance. Tom made motion to discuss that with as far as their LEPC non-compliance.
Joe Pinkerman, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion carries to discuss the issue of Coconino County's LEPC non-compliance.
Well, I can open up with a recap of what we were presented. Basically, LEPC coordinator for the Coconino County LEPC has basically said that AZSERC should not be approving their LEPC members. They're no longer going to submit applications for those members to AZSERC. They also will not be reviewing Tier 2 reports. They're going to refer those to the local fire department. The other thing that they're saying is they're not going to be representative of what's required of them in terms of the representation of the LEPC. They're only going to involve first responders to include law enforcement and fire, and not the other required officials that are supposed to be of the sampling or the representation of the LEPC. Their reasoning or rationale for that is they only want to discuss emergency response plans with first responders and not other leaders within the community. They want it relegated just to first responders.
Are there any recommendations from the commission on actions to be taken? Or how the commission, they would like the commission staff to proceed?
I guess the recommendation I would make is kind of similar to the previous one that we talked about, is basically advising them what their legal requirements are under the Arizona revised statutes as far as representation, ensuring that it basically encompasses the violations that their board is now having by not having the approval of the AZSERC as required by statute, as well as the representation of their LEPC, and basically that by being in violation, they're in jeopardy of not having legal representation or legal status as an LEPC. That would be my recommendation. Basically, prep us to taking additional steps as a commission in terms of what our legal authorities would be.
May I clarify? May I clarify? Is this a recommendation that staff addresses them in writing and let them know all of this, or would you like somebody from the CERC to sign the letter, or is it okay if staff does it?
That's a good discussion for the board members. You want
I personally would recommend staff.
DEQ staff author that letter and with the guidance of council, and present that to the Coconino County LEPC. And then at our next meeting, we can discuss what further action may need to be taken depending on what the response is from Coconino County LEPC.
Would you like a timeline on that letter of when they have to respond?
What would the appropriate timeline be for putting one
The
together?
timeline is up to the commission. If you have a letter drafted up by staff, you need to approve it in an open session, but the open session can be done, via computer teleconference or whatever. And a real simple open meeting saying to discuss approval and sending of such and such letter, bang, that's it. Can be done in 10, 15 minutes if it's a convenience issue, in which case, depending on the importance that the commission deems appropriate, you could do it in 30 days or whatever time frame you like. Strikes me a 30-day time frame is certainly appropriate.
So I guess whatever time we can get the letter together and get the commission to approve it, a 30-day response timeline would probably be appropriate. And just the other thing, I believe that's what I read here, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been a violation for going on, is it 2 years? Is that the right?
Roughly 2 years, yes. The compliance issues named have been documented since September of 2021.
I have a comment, phone, Cassie Peters.
Go ahead.
Along with the timeline, would there be anything any stipulation as to what proof that they are in compliance within this timeline, or proof that they are in compliance?
So you're asking for the AZERC staff to identify some form of information or compile some sort of information that they're back in compliance as an LEPC?
Exactly. Yes.
And agree with him. I think it would be appropriate within that letter to basically outline what that documentation is that you have that shows that they're non-compliant.
And AZERC staff keeps track of all the LEPCs and their compliance with all statutes, so we already have a mechanism in place. And we'll just include that in the letter.
All right. Do I have a motion to continue or with the recommendation for AZERC staff to contact Coconino County with their non-compliance issue and address them in writing with the timelines provided?
A motion for DEQ to author a letter with documentation of non-compliance of the Coconino County LEPC to be drafted and approved by the commission in order for it to be sent with a 30-day timeline for response from the Coconino County LEPC as to what they're going to do about compliance.
Do I have a second?
Joe Pinkman, I second that one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion carries for the AZERC staff to address the non-compliance issue for LEPC with the information provided above. Are there any other items that were discussed in executive session that any commission members would like to further discuss in the open session and make decisions or recommendations on?
This is Brent Kane from Arizona. I'd like to raise one.
Go ahead.
And it's regarding the discussion with ADQ as a non-voting member. It's the understanding that the ADQ is not listed as a member of the commission as a voting member.
Okay, do I have a second for that motion to discuss?
Tom, you second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion carries. Go ahead, sir.
So I guess like I'd open up the commission. Do we want to move forward with allowing ADQ as a non-voting member? Or have them as a voting member?
And I think, if I remember specifically, we're talking about the director's ability of DEQ to designate DEQ as a voting member.
Making a recommendation to the director. Yes.
So we would be considering the recommendation to the director to make a decision if DEQ would indeed be a voting member.
I think it's reasonable that they be voting.
I think the only thing I think about is, and I'm not sure why in the crafting of statute, the legislature did not make DEQ a voting member, but is it possible to also consider that DEQ be a tie-breaking voting member in the event that we have even on either side? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying it should or shouldn't, but another option for us to consider.
Is there any discussion? So if I understand correctly, do I have a motion to recommend that ADQ have a seat as a voting member on the commission to the director of ADQ?
Or ADQ.
or ADQ only vote as a tie-breaking member,
Either or.
either or.
Move to approve. This is Brent.
Hi, this is
Brent, can
Dr. Bailey. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, real quick, Brent, what was your motion? Was it to recommend for ADQ to be a voting member or for ADQ to vote as a tiebreaker member only?
I'm suggesting ADQ as a voting member.
Thank you.
I would motion to amend that to say that it's to the director to make a decision as to whether they should be a voting member.
Thank you.
I think we can vote on that.
Dr. Bailey, what was your comment? I apologize.
Well, I don't want to interfere with parliamentary process. Is it because you've already got a motion on the floor? However, I was going to make a motion to table for further investigation, and I think we would appreciate some additional legal, basically some legal background on this.
Okay, so now we have two motions
I'm
on the table.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm allowed to make a motion to table while there's a motion on the floor, other than to bring it up as a discussion topic that I would just be very curious, and again, I'm new, so I apologize for the inconvenience. I'm just curious if there's precedents in other parts of Arizona revised statutes or in other commissions that allow for somebody who's not identified to not only be a voting member, but also to be a tie-breaking. That typically is a position that's reserved very, very specifically in governance. I'm just hoping we can get a little bit more time to make sure that whatever decision we do make is legally sufficient.
You can table that for the next meeting.
So if she makes a motion to table that, we can vote on that motion first.
We don't,
Yeah,
But does that leave the other motions open?
correct.
correct. We still have we have a motion from Brent Kane already, but we didn't have a second.
No
So,
second, no motion.
well,
An amendment to.
and now and then he had an amendment.
And not a second.
We didn't get to the second before we addressed it.
So just for everybody's convenience, I thought you did a really good job with your motion, but you can always say, when a motion is proposed, rather than trying to repeat it, you just say so moved as a way to, expedite the process. And the record will reflect what was presented, so you don't need to restate everything.
That we've already discussed.
Yeah, it makes it easier. It may also make it easier for people to step forward and say, yeah, I want to move that without the burden or obligation of having to recite everything in the motion.
But now that we have a second, I mean, not a second, but we have a second motion to table.
Might be a third, because we had a motion.
Oh, yeah, third?
And then a
Yeah,
motion to table.
yeah.
But table pending legal opinion.
Yeah, you can table pending a legal
So
opinion.
then we would wait, we would vote on that motion, and then we go back to.
And then that goes away, that's been dealt with, it's set aside, and then you go back to the first one.
You mean the amended one,
Correct.
and to vote on that, or would we vote on the first one and then the amended?
She's tabling this decision. She's asking to table.
So she's making a motion for that, we would
Right.
need a second to do that, right? At this point.
And
Theoretically, somebody could propose a motion to dismiss all pending motions right now and start over from scratch and, clear up the logjam. Is that a third one is number third in the line, or is that
Fourth.
them all? You know what I'm saying? So you can deal with them however you wish, as long as it's clear in the record how you are dealing with them. So if you want to say, I'm going to, Archangel could ask the coordinator to say, well, let's deal with John Doe's motion first, which is, he stated, either you could restate it or John Doe could restate it. Is there a vote? Yes or no? And then dispose of that. Then do the next one. I mean, you can clear the logjam that way. That's probably the cleanest way to do it. Otherwise, you get into, again, a bunch of, machinations, and it's not really worth the effort. There's more posturing than there is a result.
And we could open up for discussion once they're all, they fail
Right.
at the next
would we be able to proceed with the original one if hers is to put that decision aside, the recommendation?
I think if you get a second, it fails. I don't get a second, it fails.
Okay.
Peters doesn't get a second, it fails. And then somebody could then make a motion to table this until the next meeting and have
That
discussion at that point to where it's not dead.
would work.
Does the commission agree with proceeding in that manner?
Was that a motion?
Just a discussion and a vote.
Just a discussion and a vote if we want to proceed by basically eliminating the motions and starting fresh that are already on the table.
I think the cleanest is unfortunately to go back through and start with the first motion that did have a second, clean that one up. If it passes, then there was a motion to amend, and then you have to go back to the first motion, and then I think mine is still on the floor for part of the discussion.
You can do that, restate the first motion. Yeah, you can do that. But you would probably want to restate the motions before you vote on them to make sure it's clear what's being voted.
Okay. Brent, I believe you had the first motion.
So I'll give it my best shot here. So it's a motion to have the director approve ADQ as a voting member.
Do I have a second?
You already have a second, so you just restated.
Who had the second?
Oh, I don't know.
We had an
Nobody-
amendment.
nobody-
You had an
a
amendment.
I
second.
admitted it before there was a second.
Okay,
Yeah, we didn't get a second.
So do the, yeah, you need a second, and if there's no second, then it goes away.
Okay. Do I have
Then you can vote on it and then move on.
a second?
So now it died.
So it's dead.
Okay.
All right.
Now do we address the motion that was amended?
I think it's dead because you can't amend it.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
dead. So then clean up the other pending motions, then go back to.
Which would be
The
going
third
over to
motion is
Dr.
Dr.
Bailey.
Bailey.
All right,
to
Dr.
table.
Bailey?
This is Dr. Sarah Bailey, Arizona Department of Agriculture, making a motion to table this discussion for further information until next meeting.
Do I have a second?
Tom needs a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion carries to table the discussion until we are able to gather additional information at the next at the next AZERC meeting. All right. Was. Is there any other items that were discussed during the executive session that any commission members would like to bring forth for additional discussion and recommendations? Hearing none, we will proceed with the rest of the agenda. Item number 5, the Arizona State Emergency Response Commission status announces new member to the CERC, Dr. Sarah Bailey with the Department of Agriculture. If you could, Dr. Bailey, just give us a little bio on yourself for the rest of the commission.
I should probably have done this before I started making motions. Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Sarah Bailey just recently landed in Arizona, based in Phoenix, as the Assistant State Veterinarian for the Department of Agriculture Animal Services Division associated with the Office of the State Veterinarian. And the other hat I wear is the Emergency Coordinator supporting ESF 11. In previous lives, I also supported, in addition to ESF 11, ESF 6 and 8 on the public health, mass care, and animal evacuation side. Basically, I'm a northern gal who somehow got talked into coming down in part of the hottest situations you've ever experienced down here, which I think indicates just how clearly I was thinking at the time. Mostly, I'm just here to try and learn as much as I can about what it is y'all do, try and help as best I can, and stay out of the way if I can't.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Dr. Bailey. Next item, Laura Malone with ADEQ retired as of September 2023. I, Archangel Berrigan, have been appointed as the AZER coordinator in accordance with the revised statute 49123B. That was through Director Peters' designation. All right, next item, number 6, AZER staff roles and responsibilities, discussion, action. Going into item 6A is the coordinator's roles and responsibilities. Is there a motion to discuss this and get some clarification, since this was not a role that was previously occupied by an individual?
And in the matter of time that we have, we could always provide more information to the commission if they need it before they make any kind of decisions or give us any kind of information as to what they feel our roles and responsibilities need to be. Or not.
Or not?
Okay. Next one.
Next up, we have item 7, the nitric acid after action report presentation. Is that going to be you, sir, or is that?
That's on,
Okay.
yeah. I'm going to just share my screen real quick. Let me know if you guys can see this presentation.
Nope.
Not just your email.
Okay. Of course it is. I only have one screen to work with. Give me a moment.
Click on it.
There you go.
Yep, we can see it.
Yep, you can see it.
Now it went away, of course. Why? Why is this happening?
Up there, but it won't show up for them as a presentation.
Oh, it's not?
Wait,
No.
would you like to activate? So it's not working?
No, it shows up. How you see it on that screen is how they're seeing it. They're not seeing the full display.
Jeez, this is a mess. I apologize. Can I push play and then share it?
Well, it's already up there. See if you can share that screen. Go back to the
Yes, okay.
Here? Let me stop
Share.
sharing.
Share screen now that it's a presentation mode. See if you can find it under the windows. It's gonna be in the middle. No, hold on. That one,
This one?
the right one, yep. Top right. Yes.
Okay, can everybody see?
Perfect.
All right.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Tom Neve. Again, I'm a captain with DPS. I'm over the Emergency Management District. I'm going to present to you the after action report from the nitric acid spill that occurred on February 14th, 2023. Lasted until the next day. As we get into this, I'll go ahead, if you can forward to the next slide. Get an overview. So what I'm going to review in this presentation, it's about 30 slides. I'm going to talk about the initial response, kind of the background of the incident and how it came to be. And then I'm going to talk about after it was resolved, the after action meeting that Pima County Office of Emergency Management held for all the stakeholders. And then I'm going to actually dissect their after action report that came out in April that talks about what went well, the areas for improvement, and then the recommendations for those areas where improvement was needed. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So just a little bit of the incident background. This incident occurred involving nitric acid about 1440 hours on February 14th. It occurred on the east side of Tucson. The driver was initially reported as unconscious. There was a red plume of smoke that you saw on that cover slide coming from the trailer. It was hazmat for the first responders coming on scene. The driver was later pronounced deceased, not related to the nitric acid. It was related to the collision itself. He was also DUI, not that that's relevant to this incident, but anyways, the initial report said a placard number of 704. That was not the correct placard, but it was identified properly as an oxidizer from that placard. Captain Buller, who's now retired from DPS, was one of the first units on scene. He saw that same large plume that you saw on that cover slide and was able to successfully identify the correct numbers for the hazmat placard, which identified as nitric acid. I believe they knew early on how much was on there from, I'm not sure if it was from the company or what, but I think it was, you correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but I think it was 13 basically bulk vats with nitric acid in them. I want to say it was around 3,500 gallons. And then he was able to get the hazard info, basically the precautions that were needed for that based on that placard number. At 14:48 hours, so just 8 minutes into the incident, both directions of I-10 were closed, and they remained closed until about 24 hours later the next day. Westbound traffic was routed off at Rita, and eastbound was routed off at Kolb. There was Vale School that was nearby, U of A Science Park. Those businesses were notified. They were being evacuated. It was being done by uniforms on scene, when it was local law enforcement or fire department, but they were basically going door to door, letting people know in the businesses. I think there was only one residence affected, but there was several businesses in the area that were affected, and they were going door to door, telling people to evacuate. And then shelter in place for the K through 8 Vale Academy via phone to the school. But as you can imagine, at that time, most of the schools had already let out. So a lot of those children were already in transit from the area heading home, unless it was after school programs that may have been keeping them over. Raytheon has 3 campuses in the area, one at the UA Science Park. They have a major one on the south side as well. They were also notified by phone. Here's a short list of the agencies that responded initially to it. I say a short list. It was probably a bulk of the response initially. I'm not going to read through all of them, but you can see a lot of the major agencies were involved early on that have response roles. Ultimately, 19 agencies were involved based on, I took that out of the Pima County Office of Emergency Management after action report. Unified command was established. There was basically two scenes. We had one for the immediate hazmat scene with the hot and warm zones that was controlled by Tucson Fire's hazmat and DPS hazmat. And then we had unified command as well for the exterior, the perimeter of that, as well as the traffic coordination piece that resulted. If you don't know Tucson does not have a lot of good bypass routes. There's not all the loops like we have here, the 101, 202, and 303. They really don't have any way to bypass it. So all traffic was being rerouted around those 2 exits and on-ramps that were mentioned before. So that's a lot of traffic, interstate traffic going through neighborhoods, trying to go get off and get back on. Just it took me 30 minutes, and I have lights and a siren in my truck, but it took me 30 minutes to get the last 12 miles because of how bad the backup was. Go ahead, you go to the next slide. Nitric acid, also a little bit of background. It was a cloudy day. We had off and on rain and snow throughout Arizona to include the Tucson area. It does not react well with water, so it's not something where fire can just put water on it and solve the problem. And rain obviously presents additional problems when it gets wet. There was a ravine nearby that a lot of the nitric acid had ran down into, and at the end of the ravine was a pool of water from the recent rain that already happened, and so they had a small fire they ignited in that area. That was, my understanding, was put out pretty quick. Not only did we have to worry about rain and snow in the area, but we had a lot of snow in northern Arizona. State Route 260 was closed, and I-40 was closed as a result of the heavy snows, meaning the only east-west route that people really had to get through Arizona was I-10. Pima County, again, like I said at the beginning, they held an after-action meeting debrief on March 15th. The initial meeting included all the aforementioned agencies. Second session was held later that same day that included community stakeholders and support agencies. And then from those 2 meetings, a 24-page after action report was authored. I can share that with anybody that's interested in a copy of that. But what the rest of this presentation will include is the 8 core capabilities that Pima County Office of Emergency Management evaluated, the strengths and the areas for improvement, as well as the recommendations. That's what we'll get into next. Unified Command did coordinate with the Pima County Office of Emergency Management to broadcast evacuation and sheltering in place messaging for the immediate area. The UA Tech Park and Science Center at 15:53 hours, the first message went out, so it's roughly a little over an hour after. That message was lifted at 20:03 hours. Inclement weather brought rain, like I was talking about, came in the early morning hours as they were basically breaching the rest of the trailer and trying to mitigate the nitric acid spill. In about 3:41 hours, another plume erupted, triggering another shelter-in-place message to go out. That was later lifted at 17:06 hours on the 15th. A total of 5 messages went out. Pima County Office of Emergency Management created that web page that you see up there for place for the public to go for additional information. Call centers were staffed to answer calls from the community, and those included Pima County Health Department, the Disease Control Hotline, as well as Pima County DOT and Pima County Office of Emergency Management. Hazmat response included contracting with a vendor out of Camp Verde. As you can imagine, it took me over 3 hours to get there from North Phoenix. It would have probably taken them 6 or 7 hours with equipment to get there. They did arrive somewhere around 2,300 hours. One of the things that they did realize is that it was going to take much longer to get all the equipment that was going to be needed for this. They actually worked with a local rental company within Tucson to get the equipment necessary to mitigate the response or the hazmat. And the mitigation method for the nitric acid was basically to create a huge layer of dirt over the nitric acid to prevent the inhalation hazard or the air quality hazard that resulted from the spill. And then a total of 100 truckloads of dirt were brought in from somewhere around midnight all the way till 3 that next afternoon when they were able to lift those orders. Again, inclement weather had brought that rain and slowed that down. We had another plume erupt around 3:40 in the morning, which triggered another shelter message to go out. It was lifted later that day. Routes in schools, Vail schools canceled school on 2/15 due to bus routing challenges. And one of the things that I didn't mention before, but the initial response, they thought that they would mitigate this by 6 in the morning, but with the problems they ran into with the rain and the additional plume, that actually derailed that. And so once the schools realized that, they went ahead and canceled the school for that day. Businesses also were impacted. Tucson public transportation Suntrain times were modified due to route delays, and an EMS response because of where their beat areas were. They had to realign those to deal with that additional traffic and the closures on I-10 that prevented them from being able to have the coverage they would normally have. AC and heat use of heaters, basically your HVAC systems were impacted. That impacted area medical facilities, Department of Corrections. They had to shut those down due to air quality concerns and health impact. That impacted facility operations. It also was the bulk of some of the calls that some of the different entities I was talking about the call centers were getting, where people want to know when they could turn their heat back on. And then this is the cover sheet for the Pima County their after action report. Again, it does outline that it has been incident response, which I've already outlined in here, and then talks about the strengths and then areas for improvement. It has recommendations under areas for improvement. I'm going to break those out in here. There'll be 3 different sections, kind of breaking that into its own section with those 8 core capabilities I mentioned earlier. So the next page will talk about those 8 areas.
Supposed to switch.
Yeah,
okay.
Perfect. So operational coordination, situational assessment, operational communications, critical transportation, environmental response, health safety, public health, healthcare and emergency medical services, public information warning, on-scene security protection, and law enforcement. If you go to the next page, it's going to define what those are. I'm not going to read the definitions. You're welcome to do that. But again, as they're going through the strengths and then the areas for improvement, as well as the recommendations, they're basically using these definitions as their metric for that. Go to the next one. That's the last 4 of those 8 defined.
Oops.
Again, this is just the metrics that they used as they're measuring them as we go through. Operational coordination being the first one. These are the strengths. Within 15 minutes, there was a full closure of I-10. There was good situational assessment, identifying that it was hazmat, the material type, and what protective actions need to be implemented. In the situational assessment, the National Weather Service was able to do plume modeling, which allowed them to know what radius to basically do the evacuations or the shelter-in-place orders and the messaging that went out. The initial evacuation zone established by first responders was 500 feet based on the recommendation within the hazardous materials emergency response book. And then DPS and Tucson Fire Department increased that perimeter out of an abundance of caution. I believe that got extended to 1 mile. Operational communications, that's the third area that they evaluated in. Web VOC proved invaluable. Pima County basically set up a hazmat I-10 incident, created that on February 14th. They were keeping their stakeholders apprised, which included the City of Tucson elected officials, Pima County administration, DEMA, the DPS public information officer, email and phone updates from Pima County Office of Emergency Management to County Administration. And then they hosted the first cooperator call the next morning at 0900 hours. I think again, because when I left there that night, we thought for sure we were going to be down around 6 in the morning. But obviously we realized that it was going to take much longer after the second plume erupted, and Pima County accordingly held that cooperator's call that next morning. Critical transportation, that'd be the next area they evaluated in. The traffic plan coordination, information sharing, and use of TransView between Pima County DOT, ADOT, and City of Tucson DOT was a strength there. And then for public health, environmental response, health and safety, and that one, these are the strengths for that. The one thing that even to this day, there's not been any injuries reported as a result of the nitric acid spill. Responder safety was a top priority for those involved. And then the Tucson Hazmat Response Team, they had monitoring sensors set up in some of the areas around there where the businesses were, just to ensure that if the readings were higher than what was, would be concerning, they could extend or expand that evacuation area. But my understanding is the readings were pretty much nil. There was nothing to indicate health hazards. But again, that perimeter was set up out of abundance of caution to keep that shelter in place or evacuated areas depending on what the messaging was at that time. The cleanup contractor was identified quickly and mobilized. And then Pima County Health did coordinate with Arizona Poison Control for public guidance and dissemination for exposure concerns, because there was a lot of that. Public information warning, the DPS PIO created this public facing link. The Pima County Office of Emergency Management, again, they assisted with putting out 5 of the WIAs that went out through IPAWS. First responders, again, talked about that at the beginning, going door to door to directly evacuate residents and businesses in the immediate area. And then some of the places that the Pima County Office of Emergency Management handled calls from included restaurants, medical providers, individuals residing out of state, schools, teachers, concerned parents, and obviously residents within the greater area. Concerns range from the legitimacy of the WIAs that went out, and then whether people should evacuate or shelter in place, and questions with, again, the use of the AC or the heater, probably back in February when they were getting some snow. Pima County Health handled 46 calls related to medical concerns. Pima County Department of Environmental Quality also received calls related to air quality, and Pima County DOT handled a lot of public inquiries as to the routes that people were open and what they could take. On-scene security, protection, and law enforcement is the last area that was evaluated, and again, the immediate scene was confined to a 500-foot radius. The Unified Command determined that a hard perimeter security measure was not necessary, and they figured it would take at least 400 staff to basically have man even a 500-foot radius perimeter. So. Again, the 8 areas evaluated going into the areas for opportunities for improvement. So here's areas for improvement for operational coordination. Multiple jurisdictions, beginning with state and impacting county and city. There was a fail to identify the exact incident command post location. Wasn't clear to all response partners. I know they had even Marana PD responded to this. And my understanding is some of the agencies coming in to assist weren't told where to stage. We didn't have an identified staging area for them. Multi-agency response, again, because of the mutual aid agreements, 911 and PSAP systems, but without that clear broadcast of where the command post was or the staging area, create confusion among agencies. And then there was also some issues with communications we'll get to in here in a minute, but there was a communication gap and just having that widely broadcast so that those agencies respond to where to go. Situational assessment, timely incident and situational information via situational reports. And that basically is, having some set schedule where information can be updated, not only for the agencies and stakeholders, but obviously so PIOs could reaffirm some of the information that was being out there being questioned or be able to vet that. Operational communications, the third area. I was talking about this a little bit in that first one, but not all agencies had the Pima County Wireless Information Network capability. That included DPS. Not all the radios with DPS had the code plugs necessary to run pick-win. And then PSAPs and local responders didn't have the ability to bridge the gap, so they went to AIRS as the identified channel that we could all talk on. But we had problems with that channel it wasn't at 100%, so they weren't able to effectively communicate even on the AIRS channel, even getting everybody on the same channel. My understanding is they're doing some upgrades down there that's going to allow not only the PC win to work better, but I know our agencies also work on the AIRS and interoperability statewide. Within the next 2 years, you're going to see some changes that are going to help with that as well. Some agencies with emergency support functions didn't get notified timely. And then we'll talk about, again, what some of those identified recommendations were to kind of bridge these gaps. Pima County DOT, Pima County DHS were two of those, and Pima County Department of Health Services didn't actually get notified until actually on the 15th. Critical transportation, ADOT, basically the DOTs down there, they had traffic plans. They didn't share them well with each other. I don't think there was a designated point of contact for the general public to get all the information from, so that they were pointing their information to the other entities instead of getting everybody on one page where everybody knew what to give the general public, or at least where to direct them to get the correct information. And so like Pima County DOT, for instance, wasn't able to field the questions where ADOT was pointing them to. Environmental response, health and safety. Pima County DEQ did not participate in the environmental response activities. There was some frustration or confusion as to what their role was. I think there was an unrealistic expectation as to what their response capabilities were and what their roles would be in this particular situation. So not only did they not have a response role, but they didn't have the equipment or an SME to support such a response. There was some video, I guess, that was reviewed of warm and hot zones that indicated lack of PPE being worn in proximity to spill. I'm not sure if that was first responders or the vendor not wearing the PPE, but that was part of this one. Public health, healthcare, and EMS, timely notification, basically getting to the hospitals, healthcare facilities, public health partners, and community was needed. It created a cascading effect. Basically, again, kind of like what happened with DOT, the phone calls were coming into one agency, they didn't have it, and they were pointing it to another agency, to another one. So there wasn't one source of information that people could be pointed to have everything, to be able to answer all the questions coming from the public. So a call center, probably representing those agencies would have been good. Public information warning hampered communication due to limited interaction between the lead public information officer and the other public information officer supporting the incident using a joint information system. Basically what this is saying here is the joint information system wasn't established, so we didn't have similar to the DOT, we didn't have everybody on the same page in terms of the messaging. And then there was media inquiries coming in, asking DEQ, refer them to DPS PIO, and then conflicting WIA information. And the WIA information is, like we talk about radiuses of evacuation, and one of the concerns or the questions the media had and general public had is why, when you say 1 mile radius, why are you saying that this intersection to this intersection has been avoided when that's outside that 1 mile radius, and trying to explain why that is, because it's a lot easier to have references and markers in evacuating people. That's not necessarily going to be a circle radius that's consistent with what we gave them in that 1 mile. And then conflicting information or lack of thereof, again, kept certain entities, including City of Tucson Communications, be able to answer public inquiries. The last category, on-scene security protection and law enforcement, basically networking between schools and supporting agencies to better situational awareness to avoid communication breakdowns. Again, I kind of come back to probably the busing schedules, information getting there soonest so they could cancel or reroute if as needed. I think, again, a lot of us thought this was going to be done by 6 in the morning, and by about 4 in the morning, we found out that wasn't going to happen. But again, how quick did we notify our community partners that it's not probably going to be open by 6? It's going to be much later at that point. And so these are the recommendations, again, going back to those 8 original areas again, that Pima County Office of Emergency Management made in their after action report. So for operational coordination, basically widely broadcasting where the incident command post is going to be in those stage areas for other agencies as they come in. And then in this particular case, DPS to notify the Pima County Office of Emergency Management of the incident that's impacting the community directly and getting them on board early. Situational assessment, regular situational, I talked about that earlier, just putting out regular situational reports that the PIOs could basically work with that joint information system and get that out there, that consistent message, not only stakeholders, but the community at large and the media. And then cooperator calls hosted much sooner by the Pima County Office of Emergency Management. Operational communications, basically training on the PIC-WIN system to include equipment and communications would be beneficial and recommended. It would also ensure all agencies are on a common channel that works effectively and where information can be shared. Again, just that single message, even within the response agencies are responding out there. Critical transportation, basically that unified traffic plan, basically establishing who the lead source is going to be, knowing who all the DOT plans, traffic plans were. That way, if we're pointing them, we know we're pointing them to the entity that has that information that's going to give basically help the public get what they need. Environmental response, health and safety, define roles of what basically what Pima County DEQ does and how they fit into the unified command. Define zones of where PPE is to be worn. And I think, again, that concern if there's funding needed, whether it be through grants for PPE for the first responders or even the vendor. Public health, healthcare, and EMS. Again, just activating those ESFs, the public 8, or I'm sorry, yes, or emergency support function 8, public health and medical services, and to do that through the Office of Emergency Management early on to help better coordinate efforts related to public health and healthcare and EMS response. And then the public information and warning, establishing that joint information center we talked about earlier, getting that going with all the PIOs that would be able to create that single consistent message and whose role it would be to push those messages out. Again, just having that single point of contact and be able to get that one message out to the general public and the media to avoid a lot of the calls that a lot of those centers were getting. On-scene security protection and law enforcement, again, just that networking between law enforcement, the first responders and the private entities and the businesses and the schools in the area to better avoid those communication breakdowns that occurred. And so in the after action report and conclusion, these are some of the highlights that Pima County brought out. The incident did bring agencies together, and they basically did a good job of identifying the incident priorities to include life safety, incident stabilization, and conservation of property. It definitely was technical in nature. Like I said, the weather made things worse because we had to worry about rain. That was definitely a concern through the night that was going to add to it, and it did. Again, on a positive note, no injuries reported as a result of the actual nitric acid spill itself. But this incident did reveal the need for all agencies that were involved to review their policies and procedures, and again, lead to better whole community networking, and then to include these 3 bullets here at the bottom: the responder preparedness, the training and exercises, interagency cooperation, collaboration, and community preparedness. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
There were no injuries other than the driver.
Yeah, other than the driver.
Other community exercises, other stuff.
Was there any CERT involvement for the local CERT team?
That I'm not.
Community emergency response team.
Are you talking about the local emergency planning committee, or?
Yeah, it's just generally general public that's been through some special training. Usually they're ones that go out and do all the evacuations and the outside perimeters and stuff like that.
Yeah, Josh, could you advise? I don't know if you know. Was there any volunteer support from the local CERT teams, SCRT?
I'm sorry, so just to repeat, the question was there any volunteer assistance from the CERT teams there?
Yes.
So, not that I'm aware of, no.
Tom, do you know if there was any involvement in reaching out to the railroad that might have been within that 1 mile radius of train movement through the area or passenger train movement?
Was there railway impact at all? Do you know, Josh?
No railway impact whatsoever.
Nothing within that 1 mile radius.
No.
Any additional questions for Captain Neve? All right. Well, thank you for that. Do you want to cover the conflict of interest?
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody should have gotten an email from me regarding conflict of interest forms, and I know after several badgering emails, I apologize. Everybody submitted their conflict of interest forms, and we are up to speed. Just so you know, I'll have to do that annually. So every year about the same time, expect an email from us to fill out that conflict of interest form and then just send it back to us so that we can be in compliance. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? Thank you, and thank you all for your cooperation in getting those to me.
HHFT is next.
Yeah, I'm going to put it up now. Go ahead.
All right, the next item we have is the HHFT report update, which is also going to be Michelle.
Give me a minute. I'm going to share this. Actually, this is Camille. And I apologize. This is taking a little bit for me to figure out how to. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Well, now they can't see it here either. It still has the presentation.
Hello? Can people see my screen?
Yes, I can, yes.
And you can
Yes.
see the HHFT report?
If you could zoom in a little bit, it'd be appreciated. It can be seen.
Oh, I can't hear you. What was that?
Zoom in a little bit if you
If
can.
you could zoom in.
All right, hold on. I'm going to get back to that. Haha. I can't find it again. Share screen window. Where'd it go? Golly, this is a mess. Sorry.
The middle one.
All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure what's happening in here. I apologize that it's not sharing on this over here on our side. So we received our reports from BNSF Railroad and Union Pacific Railroad. As usual, we're required to send them over to the AZSERC members and LEPC chair personnel, as well as any of the fire chiefs in those counties. We received 3 reports in June, 2 in June and 1 in October, and they were disseminated in accordance with our standard work, and you should have all received them. If you have not received them, please reach out to us so that we can get them over to you. I do know that some of the new members probably have not received them, but we'll get you on the list moving forward. If you would like to, new members, specifically Dr. Bailey, if you want to get those reports, please reach out to me so I can get them over to you so you can review them as needed. And so there's no need for approval on this. This is just notification that we are in compliance with our requirements. Okay.
All right, next item on the agenda is local emergency planning committees. The first item we have is voting membership application ratification. Basically, we'll need a motion to approve the applications that we've received. So for those of you that are unaware, the process is the LEPC send them to the AZERC staff, which is my team. We do an interim approval based off of the information provided in the application. From there, when it gets to the AZERC meetings, the commission meets to just ratify the applications that we have the interim approval on. And I believe Michelle is pulling those up now.
Yep, there they are. I know you guys can't see them in here. I apologize for that. I don't know what happened.
Squint a little bit. So yeah, I don't know if there's any questions or discussions to be had on it. If not, then I can move forward to get a motion to approve the applications as presented to the commission.
Just so everybody knows, we did send a link to all of the applications. So the commissioners can always go in and look at every application that was submitted. So you can get a bio on them, see where they're from, get a little bit more information than just this spreadsheet that we are presenting here. When we received them based on designee, so Laura Malone had given authorization to Archangel to sign on her behalf. That has continued, so we won't have an interruption in service. So he does the interim approval for the applications, and then we bring it before the AZSERC so that you guys can ratify what we did for the last 6 months since our last meeting. If there's any question about anything that we've done, feel free to bring it up to us or to go ahead and email Archangel and let him know if you have any questions regarding that. Go ahead.
Are there any questions over the membership applications as presented? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the applications as presented?
Move to approve. This is Brent Maydot.
So we have Joe Pinkerman to second it,
I think it was Brent.
Yeah.
and then Brent, yeah. Or sorry, yes, backwards. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion carries to approve the LEPC membership applications as presented. The next item we have is the emergency response plans under ARS 49-125, discussion and action. I believe Michelle is working on getting that up as well. And then we have Dave Farella from the emergency response unit going to be covering the emergency response plans.
Give me a moment while I do this because I got to start stuff.
But you're not sharing it to the thing.
I'm going to do it. It's a pain.
Oh, what's up?
No.
Oh, there it is, but not here. Give me 1 sec. Go to window. Middle one.
Okay, can everybody see it?
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Dave Rella, with the AZERC staff and here with ADQ. Just want to give you a quick update on the LEPC emergency response plans. These are received and reviewed annually. And what I do is I will go through them and provide any necessary feedback to the LEPCs on these plans. Next slide. So out of the 14 LEPCs, we currently have 9 that are in compliance. I did provide interim approval for 9 of them. As you can see on this screen, there are the ones that did receive interim approval from me. We do have some that are non-compliant at this time. You can see on the screen, Code Cheese is not compliant. It did not meet all the requirements. Coconino, as discussed previously, is non-compliant. We have not received their plan. Next slide. Pima is non-compliant. We have not received their plan. Pinal is non-compliant. We did not approve it. They were missing one item. I will say that they did do a complete rewrite of their plan, and we will be working with them to correct that one item here in the next year. And Santa Cruz, we did not receive their plan. All other plans, I recommend the commission to approve those plans.
Oh, is that it?
Are there any questions from the commission's members or any discussion items regarding the emergency response plan update provided? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve as presented the 9 ERPs that did meet interim approval from the staff?
Tom, need a motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Ray Striker, I'll second.
Question would be a motion to approve or a motion to receive?
I believe it was a motion to approve that staff had made an interim approval.
Similarly to the applications, it's a process that we review, do the interim approval, and it gets ratified by the commission. All right, on that note, hearing a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, hearing none, the motion carries to finalize or ratify the ERPs that met interim approval. Next item on the agenda is the action item review. These are just action items that have come up throughout the meeting. Do you have the list of those?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go over those briefly. If there's any action items that were missed or that we need to take into consideration between now and the next commission meeting, so the staff is tracking.
Okay, I was referring to Camille. I was like, Camille, did you take notes? Okay, so the action items that I have is that our staff is required to provide guidance of the, hold on.
Which one?
I'm trying to remember. Of what?
We're to write or develop guidance on the
Correct.
community emergency coordinator's role.
For Pima County.
For Pima
Or
County.
actually, literature for all
For
LEPCs,
all
yes.
All LEPCs, correct. Develop literature on the role of the of the community coordinator for all LEPCs. And
I don't think we established a timeline.
we didn't establish a timeline on that, but we'll get it to you by the next, well, that's the question. Does the commission need to approve what we're doing? Because if that's the case, we can present it at our next special meeting for the letter. Mr. Cantrell.
I was listening in the back of my mind. Go ahead and ask it again, please.
So we didn't set a guideline to get the letter, to get the literature so that we give it to the LEPCs about the literature that we're going to put together.
For the emergency coordinator,
Right.
community emergency coordinator.
Correct. For everybody, we're
Okay.
going to give it to all the LE. We didn't put a timeline. Now the question is, does the commission have to see it prior to? And if so, we could include it in that special meeting when they review the other
I
letter.
would do it that way, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's our timeline.
Found it.
And then the second action item I had was to draft the letter that we need to give a timeline for Coconino to get into compliance. We're going to give them, advise them of their legal requirements, identify all the violations under state statute. We're going to present it to Jeff Cantrell for review, and then after that, we'll send it to the commission. We'll have a special meeting online, virtual, to review that. And once it's approved, we'll get it sent out. Staff will be drafting that letter. We will also be giving them 30 days to respond after approval. Hope I got that right. I'm reading my scribble. Okay. Those are the only action items I have. Do you have anything else?
Yes, the one from Dr. Bailey, who's tabling the discussion, but basically the commission's requesting additional information for standby. Adding ADQ as a voting membership to the commission and what that would look like. So
the question on that one as an action item is, are we presenting that information prior to the next meeting? Or am I sending it BCC to everybody for review and then we'll discuss it at our next special meeting, or either in April at the next meeting?
You can do it either way. You can send it out to everybody for them to review.
No comments, yeah.
They can't discuss. And then discuss it at the next meeting, next special meeting, whenever you set it forth, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Either one of those.
Was that okay, Dr. Bailey?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so those
I
are
believe those are
three action items?
Three.
Yes, okay. Did we miss anything, any action items that somebody may have wanted us to do? All right, sounds good. Thank
All
you.
right. The next item on the agenda is future agenda items for discussion, something that we'd want to add, presentations such as Cat and Neves. Is there anything else that the commission members would like to see in the future commission meetings?
Commissioners, for those of you who are new, we had a new process where we're giving you a link online to access all of our agenda packets. Is that working for everyone, or did you want the information emailed? No comment? You guys are good the way it's happening? Okay.
All right, next.
One comment on the phone.
I'm sorry?
One comment. This is Cassie, State Fire Marshal's office. It's just the link as far as the link to the meeting. I don't know if it's restrictions within my agency, but certainly have Google Meets and some of the other types of meetings. But this one here that was sent out, I cannot access that. I would need administrator special permission to access that. And with you showing slides and things of that nature, then I'm not able to see that.
Is this through the GoToMeeting app that you're having difficulty with?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. We'll look into another platform, maybe Zoom, but I'll send out an email to everybody to see if everybody has access to a different platform. Zoom might be easier to use anyway.
Michelle?
Thank you very much.
Michelle, this is Josh Henson. Just to add on to that, I had the same thing with my department where they had to download the app, and then right as I'm done with this meeting, I have to have my IT remove the app. If we can do a web-based option, that works better, but apps are not going to work for DPS.
Okay, we'll look into it. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Now, as far as the packets, everybody has access to our shared link. Was that okay?
Yes, for me.
That worked on my end.
Perfect. If you're not getting the information, please reach out to us and let us know so that we can figure out a way to make sure you get that information in a timely manner. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is going to be called to the public. Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none. The next item is the proposed date and time of the next meeting. We have it listed here as Tuesday, April 16th, between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. Go ahead.
However, we will be scheduling a special meeting, which we'll announce, to go over the action items that we talked about previously.
Okay. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I need a motion to adjourn.
Joe Pinkerman, second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? All right. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah.